Hi everybody! Today I'll be working on flower stringers in my decorative stringers videos, part number 4. I'll be making 2 stringers, a yellow and a blue, and the first one up is a yellow stringer. So I'm prepping some smaller stringers. This is a darker yellow, and so these are going to be striped on to a lighter yellow base. And I'm leaving them right on the rod because I don't need that much stringer and my rods are a little shorter, so I'm just going to use those as handles. So I'm also pulling out a nice orange color, and these are both opaque colors, and so I have those ready to stripe on my flower stringer. So I'm using a light lemon yellow rod as my base color. Of course, you can use a variety of colors to make these flowers. And I'm making the barrel shape. As I've stated before in other videos, the barrel shape is pretty important because it gives you like that flat surface. So when I draw a stringer line on it, or if I even encase it, or whatever I do with it, it will stay consistent throughout the stringer when I pull it out. So that's why you use the barrel. And so what I'm doing now is I'm putting indents around this barrel, and this is where I'm going to lay the stringer into. I'm trying to keep them evenly spaced throughout so that you have a nice striping when it's pulled out. And what putting these indents does is it keeps your stringers from melting in and spreading out. If I would have put the stringers just flat on the surface of this barrel, when it melted down, it would just melt and spread across the barrel. And I really wanted to keep the stringer lines really tight, and so this is the way to do it. You have these little indents going around. And now I'm just making the indents a little bit wider so that my stringers will lay in there nicely and not trap any air. And if you have one of those optic molds or something like that, you can do that too. I mean, that's what it's basically for. It will automatically give you all your little indents at once, but I don't have one of those, so I have to do it manually. But doing it manually actually gives you practice too. So it's all good. So now I'm laying down those dark yellow stringers, and I believe I have 8 little indents around, and so it'll be every other one I'm putting the yellow, and now for the other ones I'm putting the orange. So I'm laying it all down, and we'll melt this all in. And so these stringers should stay relatively skinny because they're in those little wells and they won't be allowed to spread out because the whole surface is going to be melting down. So I'm just rolling it on my marver. I want to keep my barrel shape, and if I wanted to, I could leave it just as it is if I like this color, and I could pull it out like it is. But I am going to actually encase it with a very thin encasement of transparent orange. And this stringer is going to still look yellow, but since it's such a thin encasement of orange, it's actually going to give it a little richer color. And if I wanted to keep it a dark orange, if I actually wanted my stringer to actually come out, or my flowers to come out looking orange, I would make a little thicker encasement. I would have probably just coiled it on instead of doing what I'm doing here, which is just a very thin encasement, just pushing it down with the rod and thinning it out and spreading it across my barrel. So it's a very thin encasement. So this will just give a little bit of richness to the yellow, to the overall color, but still keep it a yellow color instead of orange. And this video is sped up, of course, because it would have been like super long if I didn't speed it up and cut parts out. but hopefully it works for you. So now I'm all puntied up with that same orange rod, and I'm going to melt it in, and I'm going to pull it out into a nice thick stringer. We want these nice and thick so that we have nice flowers come out of them. And so as you see, when I'm melting, every once in a while I'm going to test by like pushing and pulling on the mass of glass in the middle just to see if it's ready. I'm doing it right there. It's sped up, it's kind of hard to see, and I'm doing it right there, pushing and pulling a little bit just to see if it's soft enough. And so now it is, and I'm going to pull it out of the flame, and now I'm going to real time. So this is actually real time, but you could see how long I'm waiting, and then I slowly just start pulling, because if it was getting too thin already, I could have stopped and waited another second or two. So you just start slowly. And so I have a nice maybe 2.5, 3 millimeter flower stringer. So I'll just cut that off at the end. I'm still holding it because it was still a little soft on the other side. So I'm cutting it off at the end, and there is my flower stringer. It's kind of hard to see the stripes in this video, but they're there. So now we're going to move on to making the blue stringer. So I'm using a base of white with this. I could have used a periwinkle blue or a sky blue, or even a dark turquoise for a darker blue. But I just want a lighter, medium to light blue. So I'm making my barrel just like I did the first time. And this video I've really sped up. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting my little indents, since I don't have an optic mold or anything. So I'm putting those around. And then I'm going to widen them. And in this one, I am going to be putting down skinny lines of opaque purple, instead of another blue. And this is going to be just single color stripes instead of 2 different colors, but you can have as many colors as you want in your flowers, or just a single one like this. This is just opaque purple, like a dark purple, dark violet, I think. And so I'm putting those stripes right in those little wells, trying not to trap any air. And now I ran out of stringer, so I'm just heating my rod right there on the end of that stringer to give me a little bit more stringer. And so you do what you have to do when you're in the middle of making something. But so now I'm pulling out those points again so they don't glob up at the end and like ruin the last, half inch or so of your stringer by globbing up and melding in. And I'm going to melt that down, and then I will encase it with a nice rich blue. It's like a medium transparent blue, and this is a very strong color, so I don't need a lot to get a nice blue tone to my flowers. So I guess it's just like your experience with certain colors, that what works and what doesn't, or what would be too thick. Because if I laid on this blue, and it's a nice medium blue, but it's a very rich color. I know if I laid it on very thickly, that it would be way too dark, and you wouldn't be able to see the purple stripes as well. So I'm doing a thin coating, just like I did the orange, pushing down on an angle. So I use the actual stiffness of the rod to thin out the glass as I'm pushing it down. So I'm going all around the barrel, totally encasing this. And I'm going to melt that in and pull that one out also. So melting, melting, melting. Got it all sped up. And since I don't have any more of that blue rod left, I'm going to grab just a clear rod to punty up for my pull. So there we go. Now I'm just going to heat it all up. And so now, since white is a very soft color, it gets a lot softer than other colors. I'm going to check, like right there I checked already, just because I know white is so soft. And it's almost ready to actually pull, surprisingly, even though it's not totally rounded out. It's because that white is so soft. And so now I'm waiting and waiting, like previously, and finally slowly pulling out. Don't want to pull too quickly with these. You want to also keep your lines straight, so make sure you're turning your hands, you know, at the same speed to keep the lines in your flowers straight. That's another important thing with these. You don't want to twist them when you're pulling them out. And there we have the blue stringer. And so now we are going to make a bead with them. So I already have my bead pre-made. I'm just prepping my blue stringer, and you could see the lines. You could see the lines there for a second on that blue. But my bead is already the shape I want it. It's a nice little tapered barrel. And so how I make the flowers is I push down and pull. It's almost like making leaves, except for I don't push as hard. So you push down to get that nice striping to spread out, and it's almost straight down onto the bead that you're pushing. And then you taper it down into the same point. So push down and pull. And that's the center. I always make the center petal and then push and pull on an angle so that all the petals meet together in one spot. I'm only making simple 3-petal flowers here, but you can make 5 petals, 7 petals. You can have curved petals to make like iris type flowers. So many ways you can make flowers with these stringers, but I'm just doing simple 3-petal groupings for these flowers. And then I'm going to put single petals around for kind of like little buds that are unopened. And so I'm putting those around to fill the spaces. Now there's kind of a cut there, but what I need to do now is pull out the little points where the 3 petals came together. You have, little nubs left over from your stringer. And so I'm just pulling those out and then flattening them down onto the bead. So I'm doing that with all my flower groupings and also for the buds. So just pull those all out together, and then the little buds also. Pull them so they taper down to a nice point. And so now I'm going to use my yellow stringer, and I'm going to put them directly on top of the blue, but just like 2/3 down. So it's like a little set of petals that are a lot smaller on the periphery of the flower. And so I'm going to go around and do that, the same thing with all the flowers and then all the buds. So these are going to be blue and yellow flowers. Not sure if there's anything like this in real life, but does it matter? I don't think so. So I'm putting those on. And then once I get all those on, I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to go around and take off all the little nubs of glass that are on those ends that kind of build up from putting all those little stringer bits on. And then I made a couple of just plain yellows. Yellow buds. Yep, so here I go. Here I'm cleaning off the flower. I'm tapering them down. And you can use tweezers. You can use a piece of glass that you were just using. You can use a stringer. It doesn't matter what you pull these off with, but just heat those little nubs and pull them all out to points. So I'm getting all those little yellow teardrops on the sides. And now this looks a little bare without any leaf stringer or vine stringer. So now I'm going to add little vines that these, or stalks that these are connected to. So I'm just heating up a little ball, touching it to one flower and kind of wiggling it through the bead until there's a nice stopping point. And I'm going to do the same on either side. Start with a bud and then wiggle it, make a little squiggle at the end. Start with that bud, wiggle it through the others, make a little squiggle. And now I'm just going to push down and pull out onto the existing stringers the little connection for your flower, the little base of your flower that goes into the vine. So I'll push down and then pull it right into the vine on every bud and every flower section. So they all connect to those vines. So there's the little yellow ones going into those side vines, and on the other side also. And then I'm going to use my stringer this time and just pull out the nubs that are left from you making those vines. Just pull them into the vine until they're really thin, and they'll blend right in. So any kind of design you have on your vine stringer, it'll blend right in. You won't even see any difference in it. And so there we go. So we're pretty much done. Now we just have to make sure everything's melted in properly. You need to make sure that there are no undercuts on any of your raised decoration. So there cannot be like a little gap that goes underneath your stringer between the stringer and the bead. It has to be fully melted in, at least 90 degrees, or that decoration can pop off later. So that's one very important thing. I still see beads today being made from supposedly professionals, even with just dots, and you can see that they have undercuts on them, and those dots can pop off. Not that they will, and it might take 10 or 15 years, but eventually they could pop off, and it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to break your nice pretty glass. And so I have to make sure everything's melted in, and then I want it to be evenly raised across. So if you see anything that's raised a little higher than the rest, that's why I'm marvering right there to get it all even. So pretty much it's raised the equal amount all the way around the bead. And then I'm pretty much done. And I'll slow it down for a close-up here. And it's upside down, so I have to turn it over. But here's the finished bead. Thanks for watching.